Hey guys, so I am going to be talking about two things with my next two videos. This one is specifically about a fat fast. You've heard me talk about it in this group, and some of the girls are doing one right now. I just completed one, and I want to talk about what it is and why you might do it. Whoa, okay. I don't know where that hair wants to go. We're also going to talk next about maintenance, right? Because I know a really big struggle for me in the past was maintaining, right? And also sometimes things that are more intense or extreme, which a fat fast definitely is, can lead to difficulty maintaining the loss or continuing to lose. So that will be the second video. This video is going to be about fat fasting. First, I want to explain something about how our bodies work when it comes to weight loss. Our bodies, of course, we are multifaceted, right? We have mind, spirit, body. I actually coach about the principles of greatness as it relates to all of those components, right? But just speaking physically, our bodies are comprised of cells, right? Like that's what we're made of, cells. And our cells need fuel for energy. They need to be able to keep themselves going, to fuel our organs. And generally speaking, remember that this is something that's true about our bodies. They just want to keep us alive. That's the goal of our physical body. And then of course to perform, but like keeping ourselves alive is their main goal. Our bodies need fuel for our cells to be able to continue to stay alive. We use something called glucose as fuel for our cells. That's the fuel. We put gasoline or diesel in our vehicles, and our body uses glucose to fuel itself on a cellular level. There are two places that our body can get glucose from, and it actually converts glucose from two different things. So it doesn't necessarily get it, it has to convert it, but it can only convert it from two different places. The first one is from what we eat or drink, right? We can convert glucose from our food and drink, right? So we can take our food and drink, our body converts it to glucose and then feeds our cells. The second and the only other place we can get glucose is from our fat cells. It's really almost impossible for our bodies to ever get rid of a fat cell once it's created. We can make them, but we can't get rid of them. But we can totally flatten them and take the fat out of them. And our body can take the stored fat from inside of our fat cells and convert it to glucose to fuel our bodies. Okay, so those are the two ways. And now how does this relate to weight loss? Well, we'll get there. First, let me explain something. Every human has something called agency. Agency is one of the main things, besides a soul, that separates us from animals. Agency is the ability, hi Julie, hi Katie, hi Nikki, hi Tessa, to choose, to decide what we do. Animals can't do that, right? You put down a plate of steak and a brownie and a potato in front of a dog, it's just going to eat it, and it's probably going to eat the steak first. But if you put that down in front of you or me, we can choose if we're going to eat that and what order we eat those in. Our bodies can't. So we have agency as humans, which is one of the principles of leadership of self that we need to recognize, understand, and use. Our bodies don't. They will always take glucose from our food in a predictable order. So it will always take the food first, by the way. It will never start with our fat. It takes the food first. When it does start with converting glucose from food, it will always start with sugars. So when you're eating sugar, like pure sugar, like Starbucks coffee with sugar in it, a cookie, Mountain Dew, your body will take the sugar from those foods, convert it to glucose, and use it for instant energy. The reason it does that is that sugar is sucrose. And on a molecular level, it's almost the same as glucose. So it doesn't take much energy for the body to convert it. It's going to go for that first. That is the same reason why my teenagers, who do have agency, but they are still immature, when they're hungry, will much more typically walk into the kitchen, open up the snack drawer, get a snack bag of chips and eat those, rather than making a sandwich or soaking brown rice and thawing chicken, right? Because it's easy. It's great that it's easy because you get quick energy, but we all know what happens. There's a crash. Anyway, we're not talking about that part. We're talking about getting glucose from it. So if you eat sugar, your body will always take that first, convert it to glucose to keep you alive. Now, once you've used that sugar that you've eaten, if your body still needs more energy, or if you don't eat sugar at all, same thing. Whenever it needs more, it's going to go to the next kind of food category, which are carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are similar to sugars, but they're not already sugar. So it takes a little more effort for our bodies to convert it to glucose, but it's still pretty easy. So our body will do that next. You know what carbohydrates are: tortillas, cereal, rice, bread, pasta, potatoes, corn, fruit. Okay, these are not necessarily bad things. Sugar is kind of bad, but carbohydrates are not. But our body can convert them to glucose. So if we give it those foods, it will make glucose out of that next. Guess what? If our body runs through that, then it will look somewhere else. Or if we don't eat carbs or we restrict them. People often talk about not eating carbs, but it's almost not possible. Everyone who's like, oh, don't you eat carbs? No, yes. I mean, bacon has carbs. Vegetables have carbs. Cheese has carbs. Everything has carbs except pure fat. So there's no such thing as like not eating carbs. But if you restrict them, or if you really don't eat them, then our body will have to go somewhere else. Well, what comes after sugar and carbohydrates? Anyone know? What's the next kind of food? I think you should be able to comment on this video. I see a lot of you joining. It's protein. Proteins are super important for our bodies. They actually help to give us the amino acids to help our brain health and actually keep our serotonin levels steady so that our moods stay stable. Proteins are vital. And our bodies can convert protein into glucose, but they will only do it if they need to. Converting protein to glucose is more like, like taking that chicken out of the freezer and thawing that brown rice. It's more effort. So it doesn't want to do it unless it has to. We like our body to use protein for glucose because it does take more energy, which burns more calories, which gives us a better bang for our caloric buck, right? So let's say we're not eating much of those first two, or we're not eating any of them, then our bodies will convert protein to glucose. Notice what we haven't done yet. We haven't really had to start to use any of our body fat for glucose. And when you want to lose weight, we actually want our bodies to use the fat in our fat cells to convert it to glucose to give us energy, because the ultimate result of that is we lose weight. We weigh less and we can wear smaller jeans. Very simplistically speaking. Well, there are many ways to skin this cat. There are so many ways to lose weight. You can starve. You can calorie count. You can exercise. You can do keto. You can count macros. You can do carb cycling. You can use supplements. You can do intermittent fasting, right? The method isn't necessarily as important as the principle. And when I do one-on-one coaching with people, we are going to customize something, a method that will be in flux as we go, that will work well for them to lose weight with their mental state, with their history, with their bodies, with their hormones, with their age, with their thyroid levels, with their preferences. And then we'll talk about maintenance later, because that's an important piece. I don't like the idea of crash dieting, or even dieting in general, in as much as it leads to not being able to maintain it. That's another video for another time. When our body has used all of it can from those three food groups, and if it still needs more energy, then it will slowly start to use our fat from our fat cells to convert to glucose. The problem is And as we get older, especially as women, our metabolisms slow down. I haven't reached menopause yet, but I know from coaching many women who are there that slows things down as well. Many of us are insulin resistant. We have high cortisol levels from stress and age. We struggle with our ghrelin levels, which lead to, hunger and cravings. And it's typical that what we eat every day is really more than enough to keep us alive. Therefore, our body never needs to use our fat. And whenever we eat extra than what we need, of course, our body stores it. And it stores it not to make us fat, like just to look bad or feel unhealthy. It stores it because, remember, what's the point of the body on a cellular level? What is its goal? It's trying to keep us alive. So because our bodies don't know that there's literally a McDonald's right over there, it thinks we need to be prepared in case there's a famine. Truly. Or if there's some catastrophic thing. It stores it so that we can use it later. So one might think that one simple way to lose weight would just be to stop eating. If we don't give our body any of those things, or even if we do it in an intermittent fasting way, which can work, but it can backfire, then our bodies will go to our fat. Au contraire, mon frère. That's when the body's desire to not get rid of fat, if it thinks we're in a famine, comes in. If we stop eating, our body has no agency to think or decide. It just feels like there must be a famine. One of my villages in Kenya, it has not rained in 2 years. It is quite seriously a famine. And so when that starts to happen, our body doesn't want to let go of our fat. It wants to save it to keep us alive. Now it will also start to compromise some of our organs, but it's slower. So what I enjoy doing, because I really do enjoy it, and what I do like coaching, honestly, no matter what method someone wants to use to continue losing or to maintain, is a fat fast. So back to those 3 categories of food: sugar, carbohydrates, protein. Remember that? Well, there's another category of food, and that is fat. Fats like pure fats, olive oil, butter, heavy whipping cream, coconut oil, and then some very high-fat foods with only a little bit of protein: bacon, mayonnaise, egg yolks, macadamia nuts, pork rinds, tahini, avocado. Those, the body, listen to me, cannot convert to glucose. It can't. Your body will never get energy from those foods. Now, they are great for you, especially the ones with omega fatty acids, which are great for brain health. Fats are great to keep you satiated, which is full. Many American diets include fat with carbs and sugar. And because you're eating plenty of carbs and sugar, your body doesn't need the fat for really anything, so it's going to store it directly into your fat cells. We were brought up, I'm 45, and you guys who are anywhere near my age, I know you remember, butter is bad, eggs lead to cholesterol. My dad would buy, margarine and these oil-based spreads because butter was bad. Butter isn't bad. Fats are essential to our health. It's how Americans usually partake of them, that leads us to be unhealthy. So if our bodies cannot convert fat to glucose, but only can use the other things, and once it runs out of those, it will use our fat stores. If it doesn't think we're in starvation mode, then a fat fast is a great answer to kick off weight loss. Okay, back up again. When the body takes fat out of our fat cells and converts it to glucose for energy, we lose weight because the fat is coming out. Okay? That actual metabolic process is called ketosis. Most people think when they hear ketosis that is keto eating or Atkins or no carbs, right? That's what they think. And that's because it does typically really align with that. One way to get into quick ketosis or heavy ketosis or highly effective and efficient ketosis is to do Atkins or keto. I don't really like to name how I coach any of those things because there's misconceptions to it. And I don't like to restrict any food group forever or restrict any food group too much. But in the beginning phase, the first 1 to 3 days, and then the first week to 8 to 10 days after that, there is a process that you can put your body through to get into heavy ketosis. But understand this, all weight loss involves ketosis. I mean, unless you like have liposuction and you have it physically removed, the process of turning fat into glucose, which then gets it off of our body, is called ketosis. That's all types. Now, you can lose weight without peeing on a ketosis strip to see if there's ketones spilling in your urine. Ketones are the waste byproduct of the process of ketosis, which is how you can measure them when you're in strong ketosis, because you're not losing quickly. You're not doing it that quickly. That's okay. It's still happening. So don't mistake ketosis for only being related to high-fat eating. It happens whenever you lose weight. But I'm a little bit of an intense, relentless, less patient person who likes to ignite her passions and reach her greatness levels quickly. So the fat fast is fun for me because I feel full when I'm doing it and I lose weight quickly. Here's how it works. For 1 to 3 days, it takes most people 2 days to get into good ketosis. Jody got into it after 1 day. It almost always takes me 2 to 3 days, but it's around there. You only feed your body fat. And I literally mean only. Now, there's many ways to do this. One is just you could literally eat a brick of cream cheese all day. That's it. I actually will do it where I will just eat a cup of heavy whipping cream all day. That sounds like a real bad crash diet and a terrible idea. However, it's a great fasting way to kickstart weight loss because the body cannot make glucose from fat, but it wants glucose to survive. And once it finally realizes it can't get it from our food, but it sees that we're not starving, we're actually going to feel full and satisfied. So it's not a famine. Then it will turn onto our fat stores. And it will actually switch over, instead of doing both, some food, some fat cells. It has nothing from the food. So it will switch the entire mechanism of getting energy and creating glucose from our food all the way over, hi Donna, to our fat cells, which leads to a depletion of those fat cells quickly. I like it because it's quick and it gets us into fat burning mode. Everyone is different for once they get into fat burning mode, how to maintain that until they reach their goal. It's different because you can be in ketosis and actually not really be losing weight. A lot of times that's because as the fat is taken out of the fat cells, it's replaced by water, which still weighs the same. And until that water comes back out, we don't see the difference on the scale, which is why you really have to align with the principles and sticking to the plan rather than necessarily the scale every day. I like to weigh every day, which can also be really good for me, but it can mess with my head. But I always like to say, to trust, marry the process and divorce the outcome. Because the process works. It just simply does. It just takes different amounts of time for different people. So as you eat only fat for a couple days, your body at first will be kind of sluggish because it will not have any energy from food and it will not have converted over to fat burning mode yet. So it's kind of like, what the heck? You know? Some girls have gotten headaches, low energy. I would say most people have soared right through it. Some have had a harder time than others. But by the 3rd, 4th day, when you're now using your fat for energy, we can start to add more foods in and we can find out how much can we add and still be in ketosis and still lose weight. Like I said, you don't have to be in ketosis to lose weight, but, well, you do, but you don't have to be in strong ketosis. But the stronger you are, typically the faster it will go. And that brings me to the point of maintenance, which I'm not covering now, but I want to talk about this as I close this video. Maintenance is an important piece. I have no desire to get any of you to any of your goal weights or to see any of you achieve that if you, number one, didn't get there with the right mindset, and number two, did it in some kind of a crash diet fashion that will lead to gaining and gaining even more once you go back to regular eating. Now, we can't go back to all of our regular ways to eat and going to McDonald's every day because then we will gain. But I don't want it to be so extreme. So I like to be extreme in the beginning, but then I like to create a balanced approach. And this is what I've done for myself. I have lost and gained so much weight in my life. And until 5 years ago, I never, ever once, I kid you not once for even 1 to 2 days was I not either losing or gaining my whole life since I was a teenager. And what I did 5 years ago when I hired my own high performance consultant to work with was I worked on my mindset and aligning myself to principles. And then that helped me to lose the weight, but also to have the mindset to keep it off. And the second thing I did was I created a plan. That's one of the principles of execution, is actually having a plan that we execute. There's 4 sub-principles within that I'm not going to get into, but you do have to execute a plan. You can't just have a mindset that you're going to lose weight and then you will. Our bodies still are, they're physical. We have to do it the right way. But I created a plan for myself that would allow me to lose the weight and then keep it off. I maintained about like 160 for years and years and years, which was great. I'd been at 281. And then about a year, 6 months ago, I was like, I don't need to be 160. I'm only 5'5" and a half. So I began to lose and I got into the 150s, lose, I got into the 140s. I'm 142 today. 139 has kind of been my lowest. I did touch 137 for like a hot minute. And that's where I'd like to get back to. I went on a trip to Texas and went totally, I did pretty well most of my trip, but went off. And now, you know, I had wine last night and some potato. I want to be able to do that and to live. But I do want to kind of align to those principles to inch back to where I left off, because that's my plan. I plan to maintain at 139, give or take. So that's a fat fast. That's why you want to possibly do one. That's one of the methods and techniques that I coach my girls who I'm working with one-on-one. But please remember, it's not the method that you want to necessarily have your number one focus be. It's the principles behind it. So that's part of why I hesitated to even make this group, because like I don't want you to think the magic is in the list. But that is the technique that I find works for people, as long as we're approaching it from an overall greatness principle, leadership of self mentality. So I'll check in later. I don't know if it will be today or tomorrow to kind of talk about maintaining. Obviously, many of us are not to that point yet, so that can wait. But I also want to quell some of your